Call the meeting to order for the June 14, 2022 study session. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that Councilmember Dixon is present at a teleconferencing location pursuant to Government Code Section 54953B at 81 State Street, Brooklyn, New York. So I'll conduct roll call verbally. Councilmember O'Neill?
Here.
Councilmember Duffield?
Here.
Councilmember Dixon is via Zoom. We're reconnecting with her. Councilmember Brenner?
Here.
Councilmember Avery?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Blom?
Here.
And Mayor Muldoon.
Present.
Thank you.
I'm going to skip item 1 for a second while we're waiting for her connection and go on to the proclamation for Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. Mr. Paul Wexler, are you present? Yep. Hi, are you? So you want to please come forward to the podium? How are you? Welcome.
Great, thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you. Any words you'd like to say before I read the proclamation?
Well, I think most people understand a little bit about Alzheimer's. What you may not recognize is it's the third leading cause of death here in Orange County. And as the population ages, it gets even more significant. So be aware of it. Be fair with the fact that we have a chapter here that can provide a full range of free services and support. So we're here to help, and we appreciate the recognition here in the chamber tonight.
It's our pleasure. If you like, I'll read now. Whereas Alzheimer's disease, a progressive neurodegenerative brain disorder, tragically robs individuals of their moments and leads to progressive mental and physical impairments. And whereas there are no known treatments to prevent, cure, or even delay the onset or slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease. Whereas more than 84,000 residents in Orange County and over 6 million Americans are currently living with Alzheimer's disease. Whereas Alzheimer's disease is the third leading cause of death in Orange County and sixth leading cause in the nation. And whereas researchers are working hard to seek a cause or cure in recognition of the individuals, family, friends, and caregivers who experience and help with Alzheimer's disease. And whereas the City of Newport Beach recognizes the mission of the Alzheimer's Association Orange County Chapter as leading the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia for accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. Now, therefore, I, Kevin Muldoon, Mayor of the City of Newport Beach, on behalf of the entire Newport Beach City Council, to hereby proclaim June 2022 as Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. Thank you so much. Present this to you over here.
Okay.
Thank you. We still working on the Councilwoman Dixon issue? That's okay. We'll go on to okay. So before we go to item number 1, we're going to go forward to item number 3, the overview regarding wildfire mitigation. Or sorry, wildland fire mitigation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Jeff Boyles, your fire chief, and along with me is our fire marshal, Chief Kevin Bass. In light of the recent fires in Laguna Beach and Laguna Niguel the last couple of months, Chief Bass is going to give a high-level overview of our wildland fire mitigation efforts. With regards to both the Emerald Fire and the Coastal Fire that we call them, I think it's significant to point out that neither one of those fires occurred during a red flag day, which is typically driven by low humidity, high sustained winds, and low fuel moisture. What he's going to go over are some of the local agencies, our attempts to educate the public, provide resources, and more importantly, some of the robust efforts that were taken towards fuel mitigation efforts. But before I turn it over, I'd also like to highlight some of the things that we've been doing here in the county, more specifically with the Orange County Fire Authority and our joint responses with LA County and Ventura County with some of our air resource water dropping capability and ground resources as well. We have a really robust mutual aid system as well from the operational and response side of things. What I want Kevin to do tonight, Chief Bass rather, is point out some of the fuel mitigation issues and start the conversation as some of the code adoption appears in November as that comes forward to us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Bass.
Good afternoon. Has a number of programs in which we address wildland issues. The first and the one that everybody knows about is vegetation management. We coordinate with city staff for city-owned properties. We work with the Newport Coast Homeowners Association regarding fuel modification. And then we work with individual property owners that are in areas where they are individually responsible for their landscaping as it interfaces with the wildland. And one of the things that we're starting to do now is look at the interior landscape areas to further reduce the embers that come in and start fire inside our community. We've launched a Ready Set that is up on our website. We've also taken information from CAL FIRE and the insurance industry, and we've put that as a flyer out to homeowners and to the HOAs in our affected areas. And we've done that for 2 years. We've also been out doing our presentations with HOAs in regards to where the wildfire threats are and how we can help them assess those areas where they could bolster their efforts. In addition to that, we are now doing more of what would be called requested inspections. Assembly Bill 38 was recently passed by the state, and it requires real estate transactions to have an inspection prior to either the seller taking it or the buyer doing the request for inspection within a year. We also have been doing individual inspections for insurance and for property owner assessments. And we've had some organized groups ask us to take a look at the areas to see where things can improve. And then last of all, we're planning for the future. And some of that comes with code. We've got the codes that are adopted every 3 years. The next code cycle is going to be 2023. I'll be bringing codes to council for approval in November. We are reviewing data from the fire department agencies who were at the fires at Laguna Niguel, at Laguna Beach, and also the Irvine fire in 2020, where we had really good success in terms of defending homes. And then we're really involved in the state level in terms of new bills that are coming on. Some of them are pretty straightforward in terms of new technical laws. Some of them are a little far out, trying to limit development in the wildland areas, and that conflicts with our housing issues. But the Orange County Fire Marshal Group as a whole has a legislative analyst, and we keep our chiefs updated. And then the last is I've been attending the state insurance commissioners meetings to see where the updates are occurring in terms of the insurance problem that a lot of our residents are dealing with. So when it comes down to the most recent fire, the Laguna Niguel fire, or what we call the coastal fire, I drew some observations, both what I was able to see on TV, what I was able to get from interviews with a couple of firefighters and inspectors who were there at the time, and actually talked to some homeowners who were lucky their homes were saved. And we were able to put this information together. The neighborhood fuel modification landscape area, the belt between the interface with the wildland and the homes was in good condition. There were no red flags. It was more of an onshore flow. So the winds were blowing up the slope, but from the shore side, not from the Santa Ana side. The flames, while very large and very dramatic, were not hitting the homes, not in any consistent way. The damage out there you can see in the backyards showed the heat in terms of impacting lawn furniture and arbors and patio covers. But amazingly, the windscreen, the view window or wall is in pretty good shape. You can actually still have that view through them. So what we're looking at is we're looking at embers, and there was a lot of discussion on embers. They were everywhere. So as I was out there doing my field trip, I could see that the embers and the homes that burnt down, you can tell that the burns were coming down the house and from the inside of the house. They were not being destroyed from fires from outside of the house. That's a very strong indicator of embers getting into the house and starting the fires on the interior. Now, as I was there looking at the houses that survived, I could tell that they had the 1/4 inch, the older style screens in their vents. And as I was talking to homeowners, most of the homes were built in the mid to late 1990s. And this is before changes in the building code that required the tighter screens. Now, this is a video. It's fairly short, and I wish we had something that was Newport Beach, but it really shows how that construction features make a big difference.
Hello, I'm Brian Schaefer, the fire chief for the city of Spokane. Did you know that in a wildfire, it's the wind-driven flying embers and not the direct flames that are the biggest threat to your home? Embers are burning pieces of airborne wood or vegetation. During wind-driven fires, embers can be carried up to a mile from the front of the actual wildfire. Embers can rain down and pelt the side of your home just like hail. If these embers land on something combustible or near your house, your home could be at risk of burning down. Research has shown that most home losses in wildfire are from embers, not from direct contact with flames. The research from the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Fire Safety show the dramatic difference hardening from embers can actually make. One side of this house has defensible space and fire-resistant building materials. The other side of this house does not. Fortunately, there are some easy steps you can take in a weekend to protect your home and your neighborhood. Create an ember-resistant zone that extends 5 feet from your house. Remove dead vegetation. Trim branches from overhanging roofs and remove combustible materials in the 0 to 5 foot zone surrounding your home. If you use wood mulch next to your house, rake it back at least 18 inches and consider replacing it with something non-combustible like crushed rock or gravel. Maintain roof and gutter debris, including leaves and pine needles from nearby and overhanging trees, because they will accumulate on roofs and in your gutters. Dry debris can be easily ignited by wind-blown embers. Remove debris and vegetation from your deck. Do not store wood on or underneath your deck. On days with high fire danger, like when a red flag warning has been issued, move all your combustibles like patio umbrellas and furniture indoors or into a garage. Flying embers can easily enter your home through vents in your attic, roof, gables, and a crawl space. Make sure vents have a metal screen of 1/8 inch or finer to block embers from entering and igniting your home. Be sure to check screens periodically and remove accumulated debris, birds' nests, etc. It's not a question of if, but when the next major wildfire will occur here in Spokane. That's why the most important person in protecting your life and property is you. Start preparing today to protect your home and neighborhood. Wildfire safety begins with you.
So what I need to do is find somebody who's really photogenic and then put our label on it. It would be the exact same message. This is the message that my inspectors and myself are presenting out to. Let's start with the house with the roof. Get rid of that wood shingle roof if you have it. Go down the sides. Let's get those vents taken care of. Let's look at the bottom and let's improve that 0 to 5 foot area. And then after that, let's worry about the vegetation. Everybody really likes to talk about the vegetation. That's where a lot of the emphasis starts, and we do worry about it. But really, because of the embers, we really should be focusing at the house and then outward. So our focus when we go and make our presentation is we need to mitigate ember threats from wildfire. And that's both from the fire laboratories and the insurance industry. Both of them are saying the same thing. As we focus on home hardening, we're looking at how do we get the vents to be brought up to speed in terms of tighter screens, or the new style of vents, which are even tougher. And then also focusing at the foot of the house, getting the combustible material from the house. If the embers land on gravel, they're not going to start anything. They land on a boxwood hedge, they have something to burn. And then on top of that, we will continue to improve existing vegetation programs. There are a number of programs through the National Fire Protection Association that we can launch, and we are looking at developing that and bringing that to council at a later date. So the recommendations that I'd like for council to consider, and this will be coming with the new fire and building codes, is that we want to start requiring homes that exist, grandfathered homes, to have the 1/8 inch mesh. Not very expensive. You can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and get a roll for about $16 and take care of most of your screens. It is an effort. You have to get up there and you're going to have to put the mesh in, but it is not that expensive in order to make a big difference. We're also looking at having the 5-foot improvements around the home. It's a landscape work, and I know that people are very, very protective of their landscaping themes, and what we want to do is build that rapport, but we have to start somewhere. And then last, what we want to request is that our fire-resistant plant palette is implemented for all properties within the city that has a high fire designation, not just on the fuel modification band or in the defensive space area. That means you'll see less pine trees, palm trees, and such over the years as more and more people have to comply with this plant palette. And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you.
And I'll just note that Councilmember O'Neill recused himself because he has a property interest conflict related to the very high fire zone. And he can't participate in those recommendations as far as weighing in at the council level. So when you get to that point, he'll recuse himself again.
Great. Councilman Brenner.
I had a question about the VHFSZ zone, and do you happen to have a map that shows what part of our city is in that zone? Or can
Do
tell
I
us?
have it handy? No,
Okay.
I don't. Yes, I can send it to you. We do have the map. Actually, the map was adopted by City Council in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
It was a discussion with CAL FIRE when the map came, and there was some negotiation at that time, and it was adopted, and that's the map we've been using. Within the next year or two, depending on how fast CAL FIRE moves, there's going to be a new map that's presented throughout the state. I anticipate the map is going to be ugly. It's going to include a lot of areas that don't exist right now. For example, when we look at Buck Gully, it's going to go further into the flower streets. When we look at Spyglass Hill, it's going to include areas over there. It's even going to include potentially areas along Newport Back Bay. But it's hard to comment on a map that hasn't been presented yet. That's just a draft map that I saw once about 2 years ago.
And that map, does that impact people being able to get insurance and not get insurance?
Yes, it does. The map is the first starting point for the insurance underwriters to see where they have an extra level of threat. And then they start looking at, beyond the threat, where does the natural vegetation move up to your home? And then on top of that, they start looking at how many policies do they have in their home. They're looking at the exposure, not onto just the one individual, but also the number in their portfolio. So there's a lot of moving pieces. I'm learning a lot as I attend these insurance meetings.
I remember one property owner that had done grass and sprinklers into the zone that was not really theirs, and we made them take it out, at least that's at the time that we were making them take it out, but it seemed like that would really be helpful if more people did things like that that could help us buffer.
One of the things the insurance commissioner is doing and trying to get the insurance industry to buy into a set of standards that both sides can agree that is meeting the threat, and then that would give enough comfort to the insurance providers to issue those policies and bring the price back into reason. So one of the things they're looking at is what's called Firewise Landscaping. It's a national standard by NFPA, and it can be applied throughout. It still allows flexibility so you can have your theme, but it really addresses the home hardening. It addresses the vegetation next to the home, as well as what's loaded up approaching the home.
And how does the area, I know Buck Gully, the homeowners own down to the middle of the bottom of the creek area there. In Newport Coast, do the homeowners associations own those slopes, or how does that work?
For the Newport Coast homes, Buck Gully, they have a field modification zone that is in there. That's why when you drive, say like on San Joaquin, you'll see large areas of landscaping, very, very minimal landscaping, and then you'll see the native vegetation for the conservancy. Mm-hmm. Whereas when we're dealing with the individual homeowners in Middle Buck Gully, they actually have to individually maintain their property. That's a big deal because there's economy of scale when you're dealing with a large association as opposed to just the individual.
What happens if a homeowner has some reason that they can't afford to modify and they own all the way down?
I haven't come across a person who said they can't afford it.
Oh.
I've come across people who don't want to do it. That's
Yes.
number one. Number two is they're afraid of slope failure. And that's a big one. It's hard for me to go and say, rip it all out.
Right.
Without having the fear that the slope could fail because there's no root system to keep the stability. And that area has changed quite a bit. I've seen some of the old pictures from the 70s, and the slopes were nowhere near as precipitous.
Yes.
So it's a balancing game, and we're looking at methods and hopefully grants in which we can get some geology studies out there. That's the only one subject that I've heard some kickback. They didn't want to pay for a geology study.
Can you tell us about the new fire truck that's going to help in these efforts?
I can. So you may have seen in the recent media, we received a wildland fire engine, which we refer to as a Type 3 fire engine, and it gives us the ability to access off-road with some four-wheel drive capabilities, and it rides a little bit higher so it could get over brush and rocks and things like that, and also it can pump while it's moving, which we call a pump and roll. So it gives us the ability to get down into some areas that we normally couldn't do with our regular city fire engines. It is not new technology. I was asked that by a reporter, that we have hundreds of them up and down the state, but it's new to our city.
Thank you.
All right, pump and roll, I like it. Councilman O'Neill.
Yeah, a couple things worth just kind of doing a quick update for council. Up in Newport Coast, the Newport Coast annexation agreement governs quite a bit still, and one of the major ones is the maintenance obligations up in that area. There is a shared maintenance among a variety of different areas. Some the HOAs cover. There's a master HOA so up there. Some the city covers. And then the Orange County Register had an article a week or two ago where they were talking to residents who are on the board at the master HOA, and they were talking about working with the city to try to take over the maintenance requirements. Newport Coast Annexation Agreement requires the city to do that. It's fairly expensive. So one of the questions is, as part of, if the HOA wants to take it back and actually increase their own maintenance obligations, is it worth basically buying out of ongoing maintenance requirements by the city? The city manager, city attorney, public works, and then I've been involved in some of the discussions on that. We're not at a point to bring any terms to council, but we might get there soon. So if we get there, then hopefully we'll be able to kind of buy ourselves out of the long-term commitment on that, and the HOA can do the increased, enhanced maintenance that they'd like to be done. So anyway, FYI on that. But thanks for this presentation. I'm sure that a lot of the HOAs up in Newport Coast are going to want to see this. To your question, Joy, yeah, when the high-risk fire zone maps come out, it always increases the cost for insurance up in Newport Coast in particular. It's one more thing when we're talking about housing obligations coming down from the state and RENA. You can't build anything new in all of Newport Coast because of the high-risk fire zones that are up there. So anyway, it's just continues to be one of those interesting discussions for sure. So anyway, I'm not going to touch on the. Let me ask real quick. Can I ask about the recommended code changes as they are specific to Buck Gully and not to Newport Coast, or is that too much of an overlap? If it's close, then it's.
Yeah, I think it's too much of an overlap,
Okay.
primarily because it applied to all of the same.
I'll stay away. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Avery.
Well, certainly, insurance companies the last 5 years, and even it's just ramped up dramatically for homeowners, the cost of insurance. But also, as a part of the effort, they're coming in and making inspections, right, of all these homes that are in the high fire zones. And my understanding is that, they lean pretty hard on homeowners to, secure the houses as you've discussed. I mean, certainly right where the house meets the ground, and any failures of the siding or the stucco need to be patched and filled and just seal the whole home. Then if your neighbor has dry brush, they will come in and up your rate, and you have to deal with your neighbor. So they'll send you a map and show you areas around your home that aren't on your property that are filled with brush that somebody's not taking care of the home. And obviously fire departments are working on those sides of it, but they'll raise the rate for you.
That's correct. The problem that we're running into is that I have a set standard from CAL FIRE and our own locally adopted ordinances, and they aren't necessarily the set requirements that the insurance industry is putting on themselves. So you can take an agency like LA County who did 200 feet of defensible space, which is twice as much as the state requires. It's still not enough. The insurance industry is still canceling.
Right.
So one of the prime targets or promises that Commissioner Lara is really looking to do is get both sides to agree at least on the same set of rules. At that point, if we both agree that this works, then I can go out and enforce and have some belief that the industry is going to measure the homeowners on the same basis and then be able to issue those policies.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful. Also, roofs are not the same. So there are tile roofs out there, right, that are not secure from embers.
The biggest problem with tile roofs is gaps that are present between the tiles.
Right.
If you caulk or mortar those gaps, tile roofs are really strong. But composition roofs are very capable. You can have a layer of pine needles that burn, and you would think for sure the house is going to go, and it survives. It's really interesting. It's where the roof meets the wood. That's the biggest problem. So when you have a split roof that goes like this, and then you have that edge of flashing and wood, if the fire gets there, it's going to eat into the roof, into the frame, and then that's where the fire starts to encroach into the building. So on the flat roof, you're in good shape, but it's in between the subroof, the corners. Those are the areas that we worry about. So maintenance, we don't have too many homes that have a large amount of pine needles on the roof. But if we did, that would be one of the things my inspector would say, brush those needles off because the fire is leading into an intersection of two roof structures.
Right.
So that's what we're looking at, is where can we fix the gaps in the roofs and make a big difference. It's the same thing with the vents. It's those small little gaps that make a big difference.
Yeah, thank you. I have one more question, though. It's not uncommon now for insurance companies, for homes in these zones, particularly with big policies, that they have private contractors that will come out and foam the house.
I have read reports of insurance companies sending their own firefighters
Yeah.
to defend an individual home or two homes if they are together.
Right.
In the middle of an incident. They still have to work with operations.
Well,
but
sure, yeah.
The biggest story was the Kanye West home in Malibu during the Woolsey fire.
Right. But it's becoming, I think, more common.
You're starting to see it actually in the winery areas up
Yeah.
in Northern California, because the investment loss, not just for the immediate, but also for several years for them to get their vines back and producing, is another reason you're starting to see some of those private fire companies.
Right. Thank you.
Great. Any other public comments? I'm sorry, any public comments on this item? Please come forward. Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
My name is Sandy Mohachi. I had a fire-related information and something that's unrelated to that about, are you going to have enough water? Because a 22-story building that's going to also be part of it's going to be residential, I understand. Won't that be a huge demand, more demand of water? And already I think our water's been cut. I think the force of our water has been cut back some already. I just wonder if, and besides, there's no desalination plant that's authorized, I understand. So I'm just wondering, will you have enough water force to fight the fire with all these new buildings, and also uptown Newport there's building? And
Okay, before I ask staff to answer that question, any other comments?
well, this something unrelated. May I state that?
If it's unrelated, we'll have a chance for you to speak on
Okay.
agenda items next.
No, it's just about, will there be enough water with all the, can't the building be put off some? Because it's an unprecedented drought time we've never had before. Can't it wait till things improve drought-wise, or that we don't have such a horrible?
Okay. Okay, I will direct staff to answer that question after I allow everyone else to have the public comments.
Okay, yeah, another thing about Saturday night, LifeLock advertised on TV about your
Well,
home.
Yeah, that would be on a non-agenda item,
Oh.
which I'll call you up for.
Oh, okay.
A couple items
So-
later.
So I should sit down?
Yes,
then?
please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Okay, Sina, I know the general answer you give for quota per unit, or what is that answer, Chief?
So as the development occurs, when we're looking at track maps all the way at the very beginning, we look at infrastructure and water availability. If water is not available, we work with the water purveyor for the creation of reservoirs, tanks, and such that provides water at that zone. Sometimes the houses get higher and higher, and they will develop a system of pumps that will push the water up to those hydrants. But yes, it's anticipated that we would have a wildfire situation. The amount of flow is determined at the time of the track map. And then, of course, through maintenance and such, we keep that going. The problem we run into sometimes, telemetry may fail and a pump isn't kicking on, so we may be short of water. We do have other sources of water, but that would be through our utilities department to help make up the switch when those things happen. But it's very important at the very beginning of any project that we look at the availability of water for firefighting.
Very good. Councilman Browner.
I just had a question about do they use ocean water when they're picking up water and dropping it on to fires? Or is it always fresh water?
Not typically. Around here, we have reservoirs that the helicopters can dip into.
Can you not use salt water?
Well, you can. It depends on the type of bucket and the type of helicopter or type of plane that's scooping it up. We typically don't run salt water through pumps. We try to avoid that. But there's some helicopters you'll see with those buckets. If the harbor or ocean is closer, they could dip into that, sure.
Okay, thank you.
If you don't have to worry about sharks, is enough. Now I got to worry about buckets of helicopter water picking you out of the ocean. Okay, no comments or speak from Councilman Dixon? Great, thanks so much, staff. Okay, let's now go back to current business. First item, clarification of items on consent calendar. Councilman O'Neill, do you have any?
None.
Councilman Duffield? Councilwoman Brenner? Councilmember Avery?
None.
Mayor Pro Tem Blom?
I have none.
And Councilwoman Dixon?
I have none.
Thanks. I unfortunately do have one. I called the chief, couldn't get a hold of him. Item number 9. Is anyone present who could speak on item number 9 during study session? If not, we can discuss it at regular session. Okay, so we'll do that discussion at the regular session. Thank you. Okay. Now we have public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. Please come forward.
Hi, this is regarding power to the homeowner. I talked to, after hearing from LifeLock advertisement on TV, I think it was a Saturday, stating that somebody could take your home away from you fraudulently with just a quitclaim deed. They could just go and have it recorded, and boom, your house is gone, and the owner is never contacted. That I was told by the recorder, is it Mr. Nguyen, I believe, that they give you a courtesy notice. I guess they mail a courtesy notice, but then it's too late. By the time you get a notice that your home is gone, they could have stolen your equity or sold your home or gotten money, and then you end up having to go to a district attorney, I understand, and try to fight for what? How do you get your money back or your home back? In other words, there's no power originally given to the homeowner. Why couldn't it be that somebody else is hired, that they cannot give the quitclaim deed immediately, but first they have to at least call a landline at the home and try to, and send some kind of either some fast form of mail or something, so that owner can say, yes, I am selling my home. It is me who is selling it, or no, it's not me, it's wrong. Don't do it. So in other words, I'm just trying to say, don't we need more power as a homeowner instead of after the fact when it's too late for somebody to steal your home from under you?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That's what I wonder, is why can't that change?
Yeah.
I mean, Newport is too big a city now and important and desirable to live in to just have, we'll give you a courtesy notice that somebody is stealing your home. And as far as listing with a LifeLock, why would you want to pay monthly money or whatever they charge and have somebody you don't know all your information to sort of monitor to see if anybody is trying to sell your home? That still doesn't sound like that it's preferential for the owner, that it's safe. So I just hope that can change. It's frightening to know that, because you have to make a call and they say, oh yes, your name is on as owner. Well, thank you. Today that's okay, but what about tomorrow? That's what I wonder.
Yeah. I tend to agree, and the city does not have jurisdiction over those matters, but I tend to agree it's a real problem. Yeah, there's a lot of fraud. It would have to be probably addressed by state legislation and implemented by county assessors or clerk recorders, as Hugh Nguyen is. That's his position. He's a clerk recorder.
I mean, the city of Newport has nothing to do with what goes on as far as home
We're not
ownership?
involved in deed transfers, no.
Wow.
Okay.
Frightening.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Any other comments on non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none, do you have a comment, Ms. Benner?
I wanted to ask Aaron what he knows about that. Is that accurate or?
Yep, I mean, I think that Mayor Muldoon, hit it right on the head, that it'd probably take state legislation and then it'd be implemented by the county. The city's not involved with the recording of deeds. It's all done at the county level.
So is there anything that the city could do as far as asking the Board of Supervisors to address that? Or, I mean, is that really a problem?
I have not heard of it being a problem, but maybe something that can be addressed at the state level.
Could we find out if that's accurate and if there's anything that can be done about that?
So just to be clear, the Orange County Clerk Recorder, Hugh Wynn, has an entire website devoted to this and has for years. So I would suggest starting there.
Does it address this issue?
Yep. Yeah, this has been an issue around for a while. So our clerk recorder is pretty good about it. And it's a felony already to do what's been described. So
So would you suggest that this lady go online to the clerk recorder's website?
I would suggest anyone concerned about real estate fraud, dealing with quick claim deeds, go to the Orange County Register or Orange County Clerk Recorder's website. Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't be talking about this. Maybe this is giving thieves too good of ideas, because that sounds too simple.
That's because it is. It's more complicated than been described, but yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, any comments from New York? All right, seeing none, Ms. Harp, do you have a closed session announcement?
Thank you, Mayor Muldoon. The City Council will adjourn a closed session to meet with the city's labor negotiators regarding labor negotiations with all unions, as well as key and management employees, and one matter of anticipated litigation as set forth under agenda item number 4A and B. Thank you.
Thank you. We are recessed till the 5 o'clock regular meeting. Call the meeting to order for the June 14, 2022 regular city council meeting. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that Councilmember Dixon is present at a teleconferencing location pursuant to Government Code Section 54953B at 81 State Street, Brooklyn, New York. So I'll now conduct roll call verbally. Councilmember O'Neill.
Here.
Councilmember Duffield. Councilmember Dixon.
Here.
Councilmember Brenner.
Here?
Councilmember Avery.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Blom.
Here.
And Mayor Muldoon.
Present.
Thank you.
Ms. Harp, is there a closed session report?
Thank you, Mayor Muldoon. There's no closed session report this evening.
Thank you. And do we have Pastor Scott Cody in attendance? Pastor, would you please lead us in the invocation? I guess, is he not here? Okay, Roy, do you want to lead us in the prayer? Yeah.
Father, we thank you that we can join together as a community and create objectives and create a path to keep us strong and healthy and wealthy. Thank you for loving us, for caring for us. Give wisdom to all those that sit in charge tonight. In your name we ask, amen.
Amen. And that's from the Church of Fight Club OC. Roy's a promoter for the Fight Club, the Hangers. Okay, Councilman Avery, would you like please lead us in the pledge?
Please join me in a pledge to our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, Madam Clerk, notice of the public.
The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items.
Thank you. Now it's time for council announcements or reports from council members on committee activities and council members to request an item be placed on A1 for a future agenda. Councilman O'Neill, do you have any announcements?
Just real briefly, thank you to the Newport Beach Foundation for having the Distinguished Citizens Program. I was able to speak, and I appreciated all the effort that they put into that. Thank you to the Newport Harbor High School Memorial Day ceremony participants and organizers. Always an amazing program, and I'm glad they brought it back this year. At the Field of Honor, to the Exchange Club of Newport Harbor, they did a great job this year. And then I was able to go in and speak to Our Lady Queen of Angels second grade class, which was a lot of fun talking about civics. We had the Balboa Island Parade. And then upcoming on the 21st, we have Newport Beach Junior Guards starting back up. So drive safely. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Duffield. Thank you. Councilman Brenner.
I also attended the Memorial Day service at Newport Harbor High School, and on May 29th, we had Mark Wood and the Parrot Head tribute band at the Civic Center, and it was filled again. We had a Beach Boys concert this Sunday night, and it was also packed, and lots of people having a lot of fun with that. The next concert, we have, I believe we've got that on our city website, but there are several more concerts coming, and I was going to ask for a slide for that, but I didn't get it tonight. So make sure you check our website for that. We met with, we did see the new Wildland fire truck. Kevin and Cannon went, and Will and his daughter went, and Kevin and I got to ride with Cannon in the, I'm not even sure what it is, an off-road vehicle that they use for saving people in the bush where they need to get out into the more rough terrain. That was really exciting, but that was really fun. Then I met with I met with Public Works and Grace at Big Corona and our Newport Beach Police Department, John, about the problems we've been having at Pirates Cove. And they've got some ideas on how you're going to be bringing that back to us, on how we can kind of secure that area a little bit more. We're having problems with people going into the caves back there in Pirates Cove at nighttime. So anyway, we had a confab down there, and they're looking at how they can secure that. I also attended a UCI presentation on the UCI Naturescape, which they are looking at how they can take Aldrich Park in the middle and build out from there and involve all the disciplines. They're looking at it like a research university for the environment, where they can involve all the disciplines, and then they're going to have roads that run out to like Los Trancos, where you can get there, and how you can get to the river and to the back bay from there. So they're looking at a whole composition, and it's pretty exciting when you see it. But I've asked Grace if we could get a presentation on that, so they would come down here and tell us what it is they're planning, because it's pretty exciting. I did attend a meeting with Don Barnes, spoke to the Corona Del Mar Chamber's Governmental Affairs meeting, and that was very well attended. And he talked a lot about active shooters and what we would do in Orange County differently from what has been done in other places. And people really appreciated the reassurance. And then Will and Grace and I had our quarterly meeting with the Newport Mesa School District this week, and our police department was there, and they were talking about how they would handle a situation like that. It's completely different from the way it was handled in Uvalde, and that they have the training to head toward the fire. They're not going to stand back and wait to assess the situation, that they would head directly toward the line of fire and interact with that person. So it wouldn't be the same. And there will be a report coming out that that department will say, what could have been done differently, and other departments in the whole nation will look at what they are doing that's different from that, or what they can be doing that is different from that. So it was very reassuring to hear how important that training has been to our local police departments. And they, in fact, had an exercise at Corona Del Mar High School yesterday and today where they were training for that. It was planned months before the Uvalde situation. And they do that. I'm not sure if it's yearly or every other year, but they do that, and they've done it at Newport Harbor, and they do it at other places. So our police department is very well trained and very concerned about these types of situations. So it was really reassuring to hear this from the professionals, to see how seriously they take it. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councilman Avery.
Thank you. I attended the Balboa Parade with my wife and her 6-year-old grandson, who was absolutely blown away. He lives in Arizona. It's a little bit of an overload for him this year. It was a pent-up demand, and there were just so many people there, and it was absolutely fantastic. Councilmember O'Neill and the mayor was there, and Mayor Pro Tem. Joy, I think I saw you there. Mm-hmm. Diane, it was great. It's beautiful. I'm a tide guy. I keep an eye on the tides. And last night, 8.0 high tide was predicted at 8:40. And so I suggested to Julie that we go for a walk, Balboa, starting at 7 o'clock, and just see this phenomenon happen. And we walked up from Little Island, and it's just, the water was already up pretty high and up on the bulkhead. And as we approached the ferry, we went by Seymour Beach dock, and it was the end of the dock where the wheels touched the platform were just up in the air, because that dock was built, probably 40 years ago, maybe more. Mm. And then the ferry drivers were warning the drivers on the cars to go carefully, especially the lower cars. The ramp is so steep, you tear your bumper off, that kind of thing. And when we first got there, the ferry was crabbing in the what they call a flood tide current. Incoming water was pretty strong. And then we walked along the fun zone and out to the end of the pier and looked back, and the waves were breaking. Fortunately, the waves weren't that big, but they were getting within 3 or 4 feet of the top of the berm. And it was just magnificent to see the power of this tide. And we were walking back, and as we came back, and now it's getting like 8 o'clock, I'm going to end this pretty quick. The Catalina Flyer was higher than where the boat was floating was higher than the walkway at the pavilion, and all the water was streaming through the cracks in the walls. And that's where I first ran into the first crew of our illustrious utilities department, and they had the pumps going, and they were trying to decide where to best deploy the pumps, and they were moving things around and kind of working pretty hard. And I talked to one of the guys, and he said he hadn't seen a tide this high in a long time. And these are just, the kind of the random tides that happen this high. And then we went back over the island to conclude our trip. And at the peak of the tide, the water was up and a little over our little 9-inch extension of the wall we did, right close. And you get a lot of bang for your buck. The harbor is much fuller, and it has a whole different look when you've got that much water in it. And then all the boats and the docks are right up. And some of them, if you had wind, the pilings would be, the floats would be coming off their pilings in some of the older docks. So it's kind of it was an interesting phenomenon. So, and the town was absolutely beautiful. And it just reminded me how fortunate I am to live in a great city like this. It was spectacular. So I advise everybody to keep an eye on these astronomical events, and they're well worth meeting in the wild, such as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Blum.
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple announcements. I think we have some slides to present.
Wait a minute.
Oh, that's right.
Wait,
Live from New York. It's Saturday. Councilwoman Dixon. Councilwoman Dixon's in New York City.
I wish I could say Saturday Night Live, but no. Thank you. Real quick. Many of us attended the various special events over Memorial Day and Armed Forces Day put on by the wonderful Exchange Club, always a magnificent sight with the 1775 U.S. American flags, one flag for Ukraine. And Newport Harbor High School always does a wonderful memorial service for all the Newport Harbor High School graduates who have died in battle. Just a couple announcements. I think, Leilani, do you have a slide to put up?
It's up.
Go
Okay. So I'm putting this with a large sign for far notice because I've announced a couple of previous dates for my next town hall, and we've had to change them for various reasons. So anyway, it is, I think, July 19th. Is that the date that says there? I can't see the screen.
It does,
So,
Tuesday.
Okay, so that's for everyone to know. Also, I think we're going for, especially for Balboa Peninsula residents, Peninsula Point residents, and Mid-Peninsula residents, we've invited Southern California Edison Public Works team to speak with our residents about the issues related to power outages. So that should also be interesting and important. I think that is it for my announcements. Oh, the Balboa Island Parade, which was always a special. I'm here in New York with my grandchildren, but I adopted 2 grandchildren, friends of mine, grandchildren, to participate in the parade, and that was a highlight of their year, they told me. I'd like to put an item for future consideration for a future agenda. Many of you may, or some of you may have listened or attended the Speak Up Newport session on e-bikes, and it was really well attended. I think over 200 people in person and on Zoom. And I think the takeaway, I'm going to kind of move away from our traditional subject, a long-standing issue related to boardwalk. This really should apply to the entire city about bicycle safety, e-bike safety. And I hope you can hear me. I think.
Yes, we can.
Okay. If I understood the e-bike owner correctly, the state law and our own staff, I guess our own Eric Little's staff, Lieutenant Little said that cities can exceed state law in terms of requirements. And the state right now does not require a helmet for e-bike riders or any kind of physical training like a driver's permit, if you will. And so we know that we've got issues of e-bikes in our community, and I'd like just to bring it back to the council if we all agree that what we can do that exceeds state requirements in terms of those 2 areas and perhaps others. So this is not a boardwalk issue as much as a bicycle safety issue for the whole community. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Dixon. Okay, on to slide number 2.
Is that me?
No, that's now me.
Oh, good.
Okay, pictured here, you'll see myself with Councilwoman Dixon, and Councilman Brenner was with us on this day as well. It's installation of the first ever lift provided at a public dock this side of the Mississippi. This lift is an opportunity for people who have mobility issues, including people who perhaps are older in age and they've sailed their boat their whole lives, to have the help of staff and to use Marina Park to gain access to boats they could not otherwise gain access to. This particular gentleman had a very moving story. He drove down from Los Angeles to be the first civilian to try the lift, and you'll see that our staff was very careful and thoughtful in the whole process, and they're trained in doing this. And I believe Mr. Blink told me that someone used it either earlier today or yesterday, so we're seeing use. And the reason it's here is just to help spread the word that this is out there. And the Marina Park is somewhat underutilized, but between handicap parking and plenty of slip space, it's a great amenity to our community. The next slide, please. Here we have activities for the 4th of July. The parade, there's one parade on Mariners Drive. Let's see. At Commodore Mariners Drive at 10:30 a.m. And then the other one is the Newport Peninsula Bike Parade and Festival, which is at West Balboa Boulevard and 36. So those are 2 activities that I think we've all participated in the past, and it's a great thing to do, to spend time with your family and show your enjoyment of freedom. Only other thing I have left on announcements is we did wheel out the new, Chief, what is this thing called? The fire truck? Type 3, that's right. So I got to think of diabetes. Type 3. So it's a Type 3 fire truck that's able to access fires in wildlife areas, has very big tires you would imagine for off-road capability, and can pump water as it rolls. And it's a great example of how Newport Beach is very concerned about our resident safety and our fires dedicated to protecting homes in Corona Del Mar and Newport Coast area. Okay. Madam Clerk, please read the notice regarding public comments on the consent calendar.
This is a time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion. Those are items 1 through 21. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine, will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Thank you. Councilman O'Neill, do you have any items to pull from the consent calendar or conflicts to announce in items 1 through 21?
I'll lodge a no vote on 5. I'll register an ongoing objection to SB1 on item 10, but I'll still vote for the item. And then I'd like to pull 17.
Great, thank you. Councilman Duffield.
I have a no vote on item 5, please.
Thank you. Councilwoman Brenner.
I also have a no vote on item 5.
Thank you. Councilman Avery.
I'm also a no on 5.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Blom.
Thank you. I'd also like to lodge a no vote on item 5.
Thank you. Councilwoman Dixon.
And I will also be no vote on item 5, please.
Thank you. And I have a couple items, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
I'd like to also lodge a no vote on item 5, and I have an abstention, or I have a conflict related to undergrounding on the Measure M funding. That is item number, you said 19, Aaron? Yes, 19. Yeah, related to telecommunications. I don't have an actual conflict at the time, but I work with a company that's looking to be engaged in telecom, and there's a telecom component. And then I'd like to pull item number 17. Is there a motion?
We do have a motion. I'd like to move the balance of consent with amendments to the minutes, amendments to resolution 2022-34, amendments, 5 pulled by every council member up here, O'Neill, Duffield, Brenner, Avery, Dixon, myself, and the mayor. Number 9 pulled by Mayor Muldoon. 17 pulled by Councilmember O'Neill, a conflict on 19 by Mayor Muldoon, and Mayor Muldoon also lodged a poll on 17.
So seeking clarification real quick, item number 5 has not been pulled. It was just voted no. Okay. Yeah, I'll second that then.
That's correct. Excellent. And I'm sorry, I only meant to pull an item number, not 17 O'Neill's, which will still be pulled. I meant only to pull item number 9. So just that amendment, that quick clarification.
Wonderful.
Okay, great. We have a motion and a second. Seeing that there is no one who is voting no on the Christmas boat parade, any comments on those items? Please come forward.
Thank you, David Tanner, Newport Beach resident. I'd like to ask that you pull item 19 for discussion purposes. Specifically, there is a discussion of the old Newport Boulevard West Coast Highway Modifications Project. This project provides for the widening of westbound side of West Coast Highway at Old Newport Boulevard to accommodate a third through lane under Newport Boulevard, right turn pocket, a bike lane, and a sidewalk. I believe this project is subject to CEQA environmental analysis. The staff report says no, so I'd like you to pull this so we can discuss this prior to any action on this item within this item 19. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the record, I left the room during comments on 19. Yes, next speaker.
Mayor Muldoon, members of the council. My name is Jim Mosier. It seems tonight is reaffirming that the city works in mysterious ways. The announcement that the city clerk read said that the consent calendar is for things that are considered routine and expected to be enacted in a single motion. So somebody thought that item number 5 was non-controversial and going to get a unanimous vote. And yet we have just heard that everybody on the council is voting no on 5. But since it wasn't a discussion item, the reason for voting no is as mysterious as the reason for it being on the consent calendar in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, I bring it back to the dais. There is a motion and a second. Any other comments from New York before I proceed?
No, go ahead.
Excellent. Let's vote.
I do have to make one clarification that apparently I do also have a conflict on 19 due to real property interests.
Okay. So we'll have, is it okay to make that change, Councilman O'Neill?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, with that clarification, let's vote.
Okay, I'll read the ordinance titles for items 3 and 4 prior to conducting the roll call vote. Ordinance 2022-13, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach amending Chapter 14.16 of the Newport Beach Municipal Code pertaining to water conservation and supply level regulations, and Ordinance 2022-14, amending Section 12.68.060C of the Newport Beach Municipal Code to remove certain streets from the preferential parking program in Zone 3, East Bluff. Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Councilmember Duffield? Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember Avery?
Yes.
Councilmember Blom?
Yes.
Or Mayor Pro Tem Blom and Mayor Muldoon.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We had item number 9 pulled by myself on consent calendar, and then also followed by item 17. Let's do 9. Staff?
So, Mayor, we have our Deputy Chief, Steve Rasmussen, and as it's a consent calendar item, we didn't have a prepared staff report. Would you like a brief overview of what this is, or direct questions?
Yeah, a overview is great, and then I might have a couple questions.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Deputy Chief Steve Rasmussen, here on behalf of the Chief of Police at the Police Department. To start, this item is a clarification of an existing law that was passed as a result of Prop 36 back in 2000. And the basic nature of this is that if a person is convicted of a nonviolent drug offense, the court will grant them probation, and then they're able to participate in a drug treatment program as a condition of that probation. If they're successful in it, the conviction's dismissed, and that would only be if they have successfully completed the drug treatment program. So this particular Senate bill added some clarification, as well as also allowed the county drug program administrators in concert with the court and the probation department to use the best available current science and evidence for drug treatment. And they also removed the element that was whether the completion of the drug treatment showed that there is reasonable cause to believe the defendant will not abuse controlled substances in the future. So they basically limited, as long as you've successfully completed the program, then it would be dismissed.
So they took out, the judge would have the ability or the requirement that there be no reasonable belief that there be recidivism.
Well, there would not be a hearing to determine based off that standard, yes.
So they eliminated the hearing entirely. And then, so therefore the standard went away as well?
Yeah, in addition to the clarification on what the program is to consist of, and again, as the programs develop and change, it empowers the county drug program administrators to use those new standards. And this will include 20 hours more of education as far as the use of controlled substance and how they affect the body and the dangers of using controlled substances.
So there's 20 hours of additional new education being required from participants of the Prop 36 court?
For those that are in custody.
but it removed the final sort of disposition hearing that also had a standard that the person is unlikely to abuse again.
They removed that element as far as how they would define successfully completed the treatment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Any comments or questions from the dais? Councilman O'Neill.
Yeah, I brought this forward. I'm the city's representative on ACCOC. They've asked for help on this in support from its member organizations. The authorship came from Senator Pat Bates with co-authorship from Assemblywoman Davies in the Assembly on a companion bill, AB 1750, and it received the support of San Diego's, Riverside's, and Orange County's district attorneys. So I was bringing this forward to see if the city of Newport Beach would join with other cities at the request of ACCOC to support SB 904. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Well, seeing none, I thank you so much. Seeing none, I pulled it because I called Lewis earlier. He wasn't available. So this is the only way I was able to get those answers. It looks like the disposition court hearing has been removed, but 20 hours of education is being added. So there's no decrease in penalty, essentially. Is that correct?
What they're doing is the statute itself did not have a lot of clarifying language as to what the program should entail, and as it evolves and as we improve methods for success, for recidivism, limiting recidivism, it gives them the ability to make those modifications to the program so they can continue to encourage drug diversion and treatment as well as increase success.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Councilman Neal, did you want to move the item?
Move staff recommendation.
Okay, Councilman Duffield will second. Let's vote.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Aye.
Councilmember Duffield?
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon?
Aye.
Councilmember Brenner?
Aye.
Councilmember Avery?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Blom?
Yes.
And Mayor Muldoon.
Aye.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next item pulled, Councilman O'Neill, item number 17. Did you want a staff report?
Nope.
The floor is yours.
Thanks. Few items. First off, I was going back through and looking at the 5-year agreements that we had on our larger signature events, which is the boat parade, which is $50,000, and then the film festival, which is $150,000. And when I'd asked for a few of the documents that were part of the contract. Okay. Okay. Sounds like we hadn't received some of the true up documents on some of the so we receive a budget, and then we hadn't received some of the true up documents that I wanted to see because they're both required to have the books and records. It's an entire section 4 in the contracts. So I'd like to make sure that before money is dispersed, that we receive the last few years of those. So I think that would be appropriate to make sure that and that's partially on us. But I'd like to make sure that when we're putting out that much taxpayer money, that we're paying attention to the books and records and making sure we're truing up, especially because it's been a little weird the last few years. 2 years ago, the boat parade was canceled. Still had one, just not through the chamber. Some of that money was. Some of the money the chamber still kept because it had been spent, and when we were going through the true up on that, it would just be helpful to actually see it. And I know that going forward, our typical grant documents still contain that language, and so I want to make sure we have that on a going forward basis. The other thing was I was looking at the budget itself for the chamber event. The budget itself is $89,000 total for the event, $50,000 of which they're hoping to come from the city. I was surprised, frankly, to realize we were that big a contributor as a percentage. I'm not sure. I just never really thought about it, I suppose. And it looked like 35,000 of that was sponsorship. Strikes me that, especially given just the people in the room right now, you could probably come up with more than 35,000. And especially given the number of people that we've received letters from, the giving capacity in this city is rather large. So I'm curious why you don't seek a higher sponsorship than 35,000 and rely so heavily on the city as a percentage of your budget. But probably more fundamentally, the thing that I'm looking at and I'm concerned about is 25,000 of our 50,000 is going to go to, I'm not sure if it's Visit Newport Beach or Newport Beach and Company, but half of our money would be going to the chamber to then go to an organization that receives millions of dollars from us already for tourism related sponsorship. And this is by far our largest event to be bringing people in. And I'm not sure why the 50,000 should be coming out of general fund money and instead isn't coming out of the money that we're already sending. And so I asked to take a look at where we are right now in terms of the budget. In 1920, in fiscal years 19 and 20, our transfer as part of our 18% was 4.5 million. In 2021, it was 3.7 million. Last year was adopted at 4.3 million, but thanks to a pretty booming year we've just had, it's going to be up to 5.6 million. And this year we're projecting a transfer of 6.1 million. So between last year's adopted budget and this coming year's adopted budget, the transfer on our TOT is going to be an increase of $1.8 million. A lot of that actually is from the Airbnb and transient occupancy tax coming out of residential. And somehow we can't find $50,000 out of the $1.8 million we're going to be transferring over for tourism, especially considering 25,000 of that is already going back to an organization that's receiving that much money. I don't understand why 50,000 would be coming out of general fund money when it's pretty clear this is all about tourism. And frankly, I think that's where the money should be coming from. So I'm saying that all before we go to public comment, because nothing you're hearing me say is we shouldn't be funding it. We're going to have the boat parade, and a lot of you are probably here to tell us, please fund it. Great, we should fund it. But we should be funding it out of the tourism money that we can then use to benefit. All that money came in from tourists. We should be using it to benefit our residents and tourists as well, but we shouldn't be double dipping. We shouldn't be using general fund money. We should be using the money that already came in last year toward this, and especially if a lot of our residents on the peninsula are seeing an increased number of people here for short-term lodging, maybe see some of the benefit from that at the Christmas boat parade. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, for the motion on the actual item, perhaps we can have it contingent upon the files that Councilman O'Neill requested be submitted before any money is transferred?
That would be appropriate to include in the motion.
Would that solve that one concern, the first concern you had?
It would, and it shouldn't. I mean, they're already required to have those documents, so they just need to transfer them over to the staff.
Yeah, it's a minimum. Definitely, I agree. Okay, great. Any other comments from the dais or New York on this item before we go out to the public?
And if I could jump in just briefly, Councilmember Blum has a conflict regarding some of the items on Balboa Island, and that's why he stepped out of the room based on his business interest. Thank
you. And Councilwoman Dixon, do you have any comments before I go to the public on this item?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll wait till after public comments. Thanks.
Okay, great. Okay. Public comments on this item, if you want, you can narrowly tailor them to address items that were just brought up in discussion, or you're free to make any comments you like on the item. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Greg Schwenk. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the Newport Beach Film Festival. I will keep my comments brief. I just want to say thank you to the council and to past councils for your steadfast support of the festival and hopefully your continued support of the Newport Beach Film Festival. In the last 23 years, we've grown to be the largest festival of our kind in coastal Southern California, the largest in LA, Orange County, or San Diego County. We're also the largest luxury lifestyle film festival in the United States. That's not done by me and or Todd Cordero, who's also here with me tonight, the other co-founder. It's done with the support of 400 volunteers from our community, 75 interns, and an amazing staff. We work very hard to, I think, reflect the beauty and joy of Newport Beach through our films and through the special events that we host throughout the community, but also through the ROI of your investment back into the community, whether it be in the hotels that we purchase directly and or that we promote to those filmmakers coming from around the world, filling up our restaurants and working with our retail establishments, especially in Fashion Island, especially in Corona del Mar, and especially on Lido. I'm here to answer any other questions, but I thank you again for your support.
Thank you so much, Greg. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor O'Neill and fellow council members. I'm Steve Rosansky, President and CEO of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the $50,000 grant for the boat parade. I'm also joined this evening by the parade co-chairs this year, Chris Delfs and David Beek in the audience, as well as a number of my colleagues wearing jackets and ties and crests similar to mine who are members of the Commodores Club or the hosts of the parade every year.
Mr. Selich, you call me Mr. O'Neill.
I called you Mr. O'Neill?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Well.
I'm teasing Steve Rosansky. I'm teasing.
I think I'm looking at him out of the side of my eye. Mayor Muldoon. Well, he was a former mayor, so once a mayor, always a mayor. So anyway, I'm here in support of the boat parade grant. I'll just mention a few things before you vote on this. I didn't hear any other objections, so I'm assuming that we'll have the support of all of the council members here tonight. Just to remind you that the Chamber serves as the host of this event and the organizer. We enlist the support of hundreds of volunteers to manage the parade, in addition to, numerous organizations in town like the major yacht clubs, CETO, Coast Guard, the Orange County Sheriffs, our own Harbor Patrol, and lifeguards. It's a huge event, and we think it's been a very successful event. This year will be our 114th year, and it'll be sailing December 14th to the 18th. I'd also like to remind you that we do this basically at no charge to the public. Literally hundreds of thousands of people come down and visit, either tourists or residents, especially. People watch from their homes. They watch from those public docks that were probably underwater when Councilmember Avery was down there yesterday. They watch from businesses and restaurants and things like that all around the harbor. For many of these businesses, it's their 5 busiest nights of the year. And it definitely makes their December. I know Balboa Bay Resort, they're sold out, all 5 nights. All the rooms are sold out. The yacht clubs, you can't even get a reservation there. And restaurants as well. People book this Christmas for next Christmas when they leave. So it's a very successful event. It generates, we estimate, over $6 or $7 million in revenue just for those 5 nights. Obviously, the city derives a lot of sales tax, TOT tax, and other types of taxes as a result of that. I would, just to address Councilmember O'Neill's comment, Newport Beach and Company does assist us with the marketing of the parade. We paid them actually $30,000 last year, not $25,000, because they share in a little bit of the sponsorship money. But we think that's a good investment. They spend actually well over $100,000 a year in support of the parade. They host the opening night ceremonies at Marina Park. They publish the boat parade official program in Locale Magazine, which goes out to tens of thousands of people in LA, Orange, and San Diego counties. They also help us with the Grand Marshal boat for that parade and the big screen that very expensive to put that up. And I guess, I understand taking the money out of tourism dollars, and the 18%, the TOT tax that does go to another 30 seconds. 18% of the TOT tax that does go to Newport Beach and Company to support tourism. However, the city also keeps 82% of that tourism dollars. And so, I don't think it's much of a stretch to support the parade. We make no profit on this. And in fact, it probably costs us money. So I appreciate your support, your continued support, and I look forward to unanimous yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosansky. Next speaker, please.
Mayor Muldoon, council members, I'm Tim Shields. I'm a longtime Newport resident, and for the past 15 or 20 years, I've been a volunteer for your boat parade. In fact, the last dozen years, I'm in charge of parade operations. That's parade control, and I just wanted to comment there for Councilman O'Neill, who talked about the percentage of the budget, but we're not talking about the non-cash budget. We have hundreds of volunteers every year. People out on the water putting up their time. We encourage people to decorate their boats, their homes. We have equipment managers. We have literally hundreds of people who are contributing to support the parade every year, and that's what makes it so special. So I just wanted to thank you all for your support in the past. Thank you for all you're doing in our community. And just know that when you vote on this grant, you're not putting up money that other people aren't putting up. My volunteers are buying their own equipment. We purchase our own radios. We're shoulder to shoulder with you and appreciate you being shoulder to shoulder with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. If you plan to speak on this item, please feel free to approach the other podium. Yes.
Hi, my name is James Morgan. I'm the Executive Director of E3 Solutions, a nonprofit here in Newport Beach. And we were one of the organizations to apply for the community grant. And we were not recommended for award, but we understand there are a lot of great nonprofits in the city and well-deserving, and so we wish them all the best. What I would like to address is the comment next to our application, and it states, does not demonstrate a strong foundation for the proposed programming. And I have to take responsibility for that. I wrote the grant application, and I didn't really share the expertise that we do hold in our leadership. So before that's taken as, or people use that as, maybe in the future when we apply for another grant, I'd like to share some of the things that our leadership has done. We have had over 500 school-age children in licensed childcare every day, over 1,000 kids in youth sports on an annual date basis. We have leadership that raised $4.8 million in the capital campaign and built a community center fully furnished. And we recently opened a facility in Tustin for a home for people with intellectual disabilities, a licensed home there. There's a lot more, but I just wanted to clarify that in case you see our name again and you see that comment. So we do have some great leadership on board, and we'll be applying again next year. Thanks for your support.
Thank you so much. Next speaker. All right, seeing no other public comments, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any requests to speak on this item? Councilman Duffield.
Thank you. Okay, so please, don't hassle me about this. I am not against the parade, okay? But I have a couple questions, and just, you don't have to cut my head off, just maybe you could help me understand. So a couple years ago, we had COVID, we had a free parade. Didn't cost anything. Went on, no incidents, a lot of participants. It was like when I was a kid, the parade went on. We just met in the turning basin and went around, and it was very long. It lapped Lido a couple times. No response, no nothing. So again, I'm not against the parade, and you guys have been doing a great job on the parade, but I just, a couple of questions. Just why does that cost money? I don't understand. And then the second thing is, how did you get the parade? Why didn't some other entity get it? Those are my two questions. Could somebody else could offer the parade up? Or are you the only ones in the whole wide world that can do the parade? And please, again, I'm not against the parade. You guys have done tirelessly work, volunteers. Yes, you were out there. I've actually been for 3 years in a row. I drove around in a little boat and kept people off. I did all that. So I hate to say this, but I only have a few more months here, and I don't have, then I'm gone. So you won't answer my question when I'm off of here. So that's what I really need to get my head around. Maybe we could do it afterwards or something, but I really wonder why we could run a free one, went well, and then all of a sudden we have to have all this stuff that makes it all organized. My product has lent me all over the country. I've done boat parades because of my silly boat, and they like it in the parades. I got to tell you, there's a lot of different ways to have a parade, and a lot of it goes to charity, and that's like the Huntington Harbor Parade for the last 60 years has given money to literacy. And they're very happy to do it. And I'm sure you guys give money to charities or something, I guess, but I don't know who they are. I wonder if that might be a better angle, is to raise money that way for a charity. And it just seems kind of odd that the chamber needs to do it like that. But that's just me. I love the parade. Please don't be mad at me. I'm not getting reelected. You can't do anything. I'm just throw it out.
Duffy, why do you hate Santa Claus so much?
Yeah, like Santa Claus. I hate Santa Claus too. No, I just wonder. We had a free one and it worked, and I don't know why this has happened. Can anyone tell me how the chamber got? Steve, can you tell me how you did that? without an RFP and an RFQ, and I can't do anything here without all that stuff.
Honestly, I can't tell you because I think the parade's been doing it for 40 or 50 years, or sorry, the chamber's been doing it for 40 or 50 years.
Wait a minute, really? That long?
You know, Seymour Beeks here, he's probably the oldest guy in the room that's been involved with it. How long has the chamber been involved, Seymour? 70 years.
70 years. Boy, was I wrong. I'm sorry, didn't know.
So
70 years.
If I could have another minute to address your other question about the free parade. So yes, we did have a free parade. It wasn't 5 nights. It was only 3 nights.
That wasn't better, by the way.
Well, I beg to differ, and I had other people differ, but you know, it's subjective, I guess. I know that for a fact that a lot of the businesses on the harbor didn't see the type of revenues that they would normally see.
I did. I'm on the bay. I saw them.
I'm just telling you what I've heard from members and people who are involved with the parade.
Okay.
The other parade didn't have an insurance policy in case something did happen. They didn't have a bunch of marshal boats out there marshaling the parade, making sure boaters were safe and keeping the boats that were traveling the harbor in the parade separate from the spectators, many of which are in your Duffys that are driving a little drunk. So we try and keep them. Oh, they do.
Okay.
It's a known fact. I'm not saying Duffy's drunk. I'm just saying that people do stupid things out there, and we need to protect the parade and the spectators from each other.
No doubt.
So, you know, they weren't involved with the marketing the parade, advertising it to the hundreds of thousands of people here in Southern California that heard about the parade, that watched the parade on TV, through the news, or picked up, you know, a couple years back, not the parade you're talking about, but pre-COVID. The parade actually appeared, I think, on all the NBC affiliates in the country. And that doesn't happen on its own. It happens because there's a lot of people working to make that happen, whether it's the Chamber or Newport Beach and Company through their marketing efforts. And that only inures to the benefit of the city and the brand of Newport Beach and promoting our city as a tourist destination. So, yes, you could have a parade out there and hope for the best. We hope for the best and plan for the worst. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosansky.
Thanks, Steve.
Councilman O'Neill.
Yeah, so I'm going to come back around to the question of why we're using general fund money. Steve's right. We keep 82% of the TOT, and you know what we use it for? Literally everything. It's general fund money. It goes to our police department, fire department, harbor patrol. It goes to our parks, public works. We're going to be talking about that later tonight because we're going to be debating how to use, you know, $260+ million worth of general fund in this coming year, because we can spend it on anything and everything that benefits our residents. What I'm talking about is the 18% that is going to have a substantial increase. The anticipation is, like I said, almost $1.8 million difference between what was budgeted last year and this year, which, when I looked at our budget, is an increase. I mean, we're looking at increases of about 40% year over year. I mean, it's massive. And what I'm a little concerned about, frankly, is that we've got Gary Sherwin in the audience, and I asked these questions beforehand, and he didn't come up during public comment. And I don't think we were able to hold back money based on our contract with Visit Newport Beach. And so I was hopeful, frankly, that Gary, you'd come up and say, yes, we'll be happy to take 50,000 of the 1.8 million and put it toward this boat parade. It didn't happen. So I'm maybe hopeful that you'll still do it before we're done here and make the motion, because that is a massive amount of money that's going to be going to our tourism bureau and on this item. Having that much money going into our tourism industry bureau, and then on top of that, another 25,000 out of the 50 that we would be giving tonight, seems like we should have a better partnership on that one. But I'll pass it to Ms. Brenner.
Thank you, Councilman Brenner.
I understand your concern about that, and it's my understanding that at some point in the future we're going to be talking about that TOT money and the amount that goes to Visit Newport Beach, and I'm just not sure we have to combine it with the boat parade discussion. I know that Gary has been reaching out to several organizations of which I'm a part, and has been doing more for like the Chamber and not the Newport Chamber, the CDM Chamber, and Corona Residents Association, and doing some things with that money that does benefit the public more than necessarily in the past. So I'm concerned that we're combining both discussions into one, that maybe we could talk about them separately. Thank you.
Yeah, can I respond?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not combining the future negotiations, although perhaps it's a scope question, and maybe we'll have to deal with trying to figure out what the proper scope is of the money. Because if we've got large tourism events like this, that should be coming out of the tourism money that is coming into our city. So, like I said, I'm not combining the two. I'm not even referencing a future negotiation of the contract. I'm talking about trying to make sure that we're protecting our general fund money as much as possible. And when I see, like I said, an increase of 1.8 million, 50,000 of it is reasonable to ask to contribute in. So that's what I'm referencing. I'm not talking about a negotiation.
Thank you. Councilman Avery.
I just think, I certainly didn't anticipate the enormous growth of TOT, particularly through, and the growth at the short-term rental money. It was staggering. And so I think when the agreements were done, that just wasn't anticipated. And I tend to agree with Councilmember O'Neill in the sense that we should have a shot at investing more of that money where the need, I think, would be greater in the city. So it's just unfortunately we're locked into this. So it doesn't mean anything's wrong with Visit Newport Beach and all the rest of it. It's just it's at this point with such a waterfall of cash from an unexpected source. It's just too bad the agreement was what it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the dais before I go to New York? Okay. Councilwoman Dixon, do you have any comments on this item?
I do. If I could ask Mr. Rosansky to come back up to the lectern, please. Ask him a couple questions.
Come on up.
I'm here.
I just want to separate the Visit Newport Beach revenue situation, putting that aside, because I don't think that's relevant to this particular discussion. Could you please explain for me? So if the city grants or donates $50,000, are you a marketing organization? And the reason why you are are you outsourcing marketing to Visit Newport Beach? Could you explain that relationship, if you would, please?
Yeah, I don't really think of us as a marketing organization. We're a support organization for small business here in Newport Beach. We're here to help them with their various needs through education, networking, other types of things. When it comes to the boat parade, years ago, before I was there, and even maybe the first year I was there, we did handle most of the marketing in-house, and I wouldn't say it was our that's just not our bandwidth. We even at that time had outsourced like the boat parade program to the Daily Pilot. I think that they prepared the insert and in exchange for keeping all the revenue for whatever ads they could sell. So even at that point, we weren't really marketing the parade ourselves. We feel our sweet spot is to be the host and the organizer of the parade, and to utilize the expertise of Newport Beach and Company to make sure that the message gets out that we have a great parade and we have a great city, and come here and visit and see it.
So how would you define the chamber's role then? So you're not marketing. So what is the balance of the 50,000? 25 goes, or whatever that amount is, depending on the agreement with the sponsorship. But what does the chamber do?
So, well, as I said, we're the host and organizer of the parade. We've already had a couple of planning sessions for this year's parade. We meet regularly. We work to organize the volunteers. We register the boat owners. We make sure that the parade is advertised around town. I could go through some of the things. We buy banners. We provide boat parade participants the winners awards. Excuse me. We also have the Ring of Lights, and we provide banners for their homes for the ward participants. We produce brochures. We have fireworks at the end of the parade that we pay for. Insurance, as I mentioned earlier. Permits that the city charges us for. That's almost $3,000 right there. So you're getting $3,000 of your money back when out of the 50. Postage, photography for the, taking pictures of the boats. So we have the marketing materials that we need to advertise the parade. Even down to sound systems on the lead boat and the end boat to provide, the experience and interaction with the crowd, through the voice of the parade and Santa Claus at the very end of the parade. So it goes for a number of different things like that. A reception for the boat parade winners and the Ring of Lights winners, typically in January. Unfortunately, this year couldn't do it in January, did it in May.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, if we at some point wanted to reorganize the contract with Visit Newport Beach to say that they're responsible for staging the entirety of the boat parade, that's a different type of discussion, just as you identified numerous functional roles that the chamber plays, as any chamber, to bring awareness and bring the tourists, bring the visitors, and it's also not just Visit Newport Beach serves the tourists and marketing the city worldwide. This is for our residents, also our homeowners and residents who enjoy the parade. So I think it is a very appropriate function of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce to be a modest sponsor of the boat parade, and you're not a for-profit organization, the last I heard, and my understanding too, we give to the golf tournament, and that goes back to Hope for a charitable organization. The Newport Beach Chamber is a nonprofit organization to benefit and it's not doing medical services for the community, but it's providing opportunities for our businesses to thrive and take advantage of a unique situation that brings people into our city and fills our restaurants and our stores and brings sales tax revenue. Have you ever done an economic impact study on the economic impact of the boat parade?
So Newport Beach and Company did commission a study, I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, or the result of which said that the 5 nights of the parade generate in the neighborhood of $6 million a year in direct revenue to the businesses here in town for those 5 nights of the parade.
So that's a pretty good investment return for $50,000 general fund investment. And we do have a surplus this year. And frankly, we do have a surplus nearly every year, as long as I have been on the council. And we do spend money on a lot of important things very carefully. We certainly don't spend money casually. I support this. I think it would be a very serious black mark on the chamber and the city combined to say we're not going to do anything more for the Christmas parade, for something that's a 70-year institution in our community, over $50,000 when we have a $13 million surplus of all years. If this were 2008, I'd say let's tighten our belts and we've got to stop doing a lot of things. But I just think it sends a bad signal to all of our volunteers and our homeowners who love the professionalism of the parade. And I think this is a topic for another day when we could look at Visit Newport Beach and see. I do think the short-term rental revenues, that's another topic, should be looked at. I've always said that. And Gary Sherwin knows that I feel that way, or at least a portion of them, but that's not the issue tonight. So these are apples and oranges, and we can't conflate the two. So I support it, and I believe that the boat parade is a significant public relations opportunity and success story for the city of Newport Beach, and it's very appropriate that we support it in a very, very modest way, just to get the wheels in motion. And the marketing is outsourced to Visit Newport Beach, which is a marketing organization. That's where their wheelhouse is. That makes all the sense in the world to me. So I support this and appreciate all that the volunteers do in our community, and I hope they will continue to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Dixon. We need a reset of the queue, but I know Councilman O'Neill would like to speak.
Yeah, real quick. It's clearly not apples and oranges, and it's clearly relevant because $50,000 of general fund money going to the chamber and $25,000 immediately going from the chamber to Visit Newport Beach does matter, and we should be paying attention to the budget. That's why we ask for a budget. And my understanding is that we given in this next budget, the anticipation is that the city will be transferring $6.1 million to visit Newport Beach in order to market our city. So I'm saying, why would we be giving them an additional $25,000 to do so when we already give them $6.1 million? That's what I'm saying. It should be within the scope of what they're doing already. And I don't think there's any reason for us to be going through the chamber to give VNB another $25,000 on top of the 6.1. So it's clearly relevant. It's not apples and oranges, it's money. And every dollar that is in our general fund is taxpayer money that we should be paying a lot of attention to. So whether it's small or big, we should still be looking at it, and that's the point. So I'm still going to support this because I think that it's that if VNB is not going to step up and do that, we can't force them to do that. And so I'm going to continue to support this, but I think that's what should have happened tonight. So I'll make the motion to support staff recommendation.
And that's with contingent upon the forms being submitted before cash transfer.
Yeah, both contracts had a section 4.5. They've got it. Those are the documents that we'd be asking them to give.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Councilwoman Brenner, are you? Okay, so still needs to be reset, but okay. Seeing no other.
Wait, can I clarify? What are we voting on? Is that include the Christmas parade allocation?
Yes, it's staff recommendation.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a second? Are you looking for a second?
No, we have a first and a second, and they were just clearing the queue here for up at the dais. You can't see it in New York. We are ready to vote. Councilwoman Dixon?
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Blom? Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Duffield?
Yes.
Councilmember Avery?
Yes.
Mayor Muldoon?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. We're going to.
6-0, my apologies.
Okay, moving on to public comments on non-agenda items. If you have public comments on non-agenda items, please come forward.
Roy Engelbrecht. I'm livid that I have to be here tonight, but I have to speak my mind and hold people accountable. The last time I was here, scores of Newport Beach residents came to this dais and pleaded with this council to not hold a special election on B. But 4 of you decided the other way. So first of all, I want to thank Councilwoman Brenner, Councilman Avery, Councilwoman Dixon for serving the residents of this community and not serving your own personal political agenda. Councilman O'Neill, your failed experiment cost this city $250,000, funds that could be better used. The 4 councilmen, Councilman Bloom, Councilman Muldoon, Councilman Duffy, and Councilman O'Neill.
Mayor Muldoon.
Mayor Muldoon. You were tone deaf to the residents that you serve. You served yourself. And what is more egregious to me, and what is more unforgivable, is that you championed this vote in this special election, and to me, it divided this community like I've never seen before. You 4 should be ashamed.
You know, Roy, I asked you to do the invocation. You know the scripture, blessed is the peacemaker. I think you should be thinking about that before you yell at us. There was no special election, Roy. It was on the ballot. There's democracy, but that's not what happened.
Yeah, I remember the last time you were here too, Roy. You divided up. I'll see you.
Kevin.
Yes, Councilman Avery.
It's over, and what's really important is that we all work together for the good of this city, and it's really tough to hear those words. Mr. Engelbrecht has the right to speak, but to be respectful. It needs to be respectful for us to move forward. And the process was absolutely correct. It was a democratic council vote. That's the way it goes. And so all of us up here know that. And but all of us want this city to just keep moving from success to success and to heal from this and just go on. So I hope that's the last time we bring this up here in this council chamber, because we just need to work together. We've got business to do here. Thank you.
Okay, public comments?
All right. See if that stays. I guess it won't.
Good evening, council members, Honorable Mayor Muldoon. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. My name is Ryan Farsai, and today is Flag Day. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. I have with me the United States Constitution. I carry it with me in my car. It's always good reference. And what I wanted to share with you today is what's happening in the United States of America, as you should be fully aware of, is that there is a division of the masses. And the founding fathers created the Article 5 of the United States Constitution in order to be able to make amendments to the Constitution, because it is the highest law of the land and the framework in which our government and our different branches interact. Unfortunately, for the last few years, that has not been followed upon. And that's what needs to be understood by everyone. Because there's a reason they wrote it up the way it did. If the Senate or the Congress wants to make an amendment to the law, they have to have 3/4 of it in favor of it. And then they send it to get it ratified by 3/4 of the states. It's designed for this reason, so that you guys are very united as one when you want to change the laws of the land. The laws of the land supersedes the president, the Congress, the senators, and even the 9 Supreme Court justices. And I've been saying it for years, that this country is a country of 60 kings. You have 50 governors, 1 president, and 9 chief justices. Those are your 60 kings. There's your 60 kings. We live in a kingdom. This is what it is. We call it a democracy, but it's failing right now as we speak because of the division that stands. And as the old saying goes, united we stand, divided we fall. And that's what's happening in the United States of America today. We're divided, and we need to learn to work as one united cause. So when you don't care for the other man next to you, your neighbor, or your friend, or the person walking down the street, that reflects on you. And that's what's happening in the state of California, especially. We're printing money, we're causing inflation, and there's more and more homeless people. There's more billionaires created in the last 2 years than ever before in the previous 100+ years. There's also more homeless people. So that needs to be taken into account. And what's going to be done with that? Because you can go buy a $5 million house in the valley, and then you walk down the street and there's homeless people all over. And we need to pay attention to this before it gets worse and worse and worse and out of hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Charles.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Charles Klob. I hadn't planned to speak tonight, but I decided to. I want to thank Councilman Avery for his letter calling for unity in the Stu News following the election. I support that, and I thank you, Councilman Avery, for that.
Thank you, Charles. Next speaker, please. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to current business. Public hearing component, item number 22. Staff?
Just waiting for the presentation. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm Scott Catlett, your finance director. I'm joined this evening by the city's budget manager, Shelby Bergwan. We have a brief presentation for you this evening to summarize the budget before you this evening for adoption, as well as a few minor changes and some other items attached for your consideration. So to recap, the detailed presentation we provided to the council 3 weeks ago, the budget that is before you includes a strong budget surplus with record general fund revenues in the year ahead. It's a budget that is balanced with revenues exceeding expenditures. We've worked hard to enhance our savings programs and planning programs, also to increase accuracy in the budget, made a number of changes we talked to you in the Finance Committee about in that area. We've increased the UAL payment proposed in the budget for the pensions from $40 to $45 million, which would eliminate that liability a year sooner based on projections. And that budget results in a almost $8 million surplus, which we would have recommendations this evening for how to allocate those funds. Attached to the proposed budget documents this evening is a standard item you see every year, which is the proposed budget revisions. These are all minor items that come to staff's attention after the budget is additionally prepared and the book is printed. The material revisions this year, one is to address the rising fuel costs that we've seen out there. So we've added some money to the fuel budget to make sure we have enough appropriations for that. We've included some additional MOUs that have been before the council since the budget was printed. And then we've made some miscellaneous corrections for errors and omissions that were requested by city departments. Bottom line is about $300,000 in the general fund. And you can see that right here at the bottom of the table, $334,000 of additional appropriations. That requires a slight increase in the contingency reserve, which is the $83,000 at the top, but still a surplus of $7.5 million in the budget that's before you. Staff's recommendations, based on discussions with the Finance Committee at their last meeting, are to appropriate that structural budget surplus. We would take $5 million of that and put it towards our pension UAL to go ahead and prepay that extra $5 million that we normally pay at the end of the year, get that out of the way. We would allocate $1 million to the facilities financing plan as seed money for the park study that's going on in the year ahead to provide money to replace our park facilities, which is one item that's not currently fully documented in the FFP. And then the balance of $1.5 million would be set aside for the CIP, and that would come forward to you as part of next year's CIP process as part of the extra funds on hand from, we would assume, from year end, and we come back to you at that time. As is the case every year, there's a number of attachments related to the city's positions and salaries. Those are required under CalPERS rules as well as under the municipal code. We also have one minor correction to one of the MOUs that you previously approved for the Lifeguard Management Association. So that is also included as an attachment. There are two changes to City Council policies I wanted to point out. These are items that came out of those Finance Committee discussions that I shared with you at our meeting with you 3 weeks ago. The first policy is the policy that governs the FFP and the Harbor and Beaches Master Plan. The recommendations here would align that policy with the recommendations from the Finance Committee, which would set contributions to at least equal the debt service on our general fund debts. I would also clarify some language that was previously in the reserve policy and move that into the FFP policy that has to do with the minimum balance in the reserve. And met with Councilmember O'Neill, chair of the Finance Committee, and talked through these policies in the last week. One recommendation staff would have that we would concur with that Councilmember O'Neill suggested, and we would request be included in the motion, would be to amend subsection I of this policy to remove the word strive to. And what that would do is require us to have a minimum balance in the fund rather than strive to have that minimum balance. So that puts a little bit more concrete requirement there that there is that minimum balance in place. And then there's other changes proposed to City Council policy F2. They're all minor in nature, but they're again aligning that policy with the conversations we've had with the Finance Committee over the last year. Finance Committee, as I said, did meet and discuss this, and they voted unanimously to recommend the budget as presented forward to the council, as well as the recommendations about how to use the year-end surplus. With that, our recommendations are before you on the screen, including conducting the public hearing, and we're here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the dais?
Sorry, Could you go back to the first slide? Sorry, I'm forgetting. How much are we projecting on is the surplus of the fiscal year we're in currently?
In the year we're in currently, I believe it's around $14 million before we set aside funds for the contribution to the contingency reserve. So I think about 11 million more.
Okay, and so we'll know the answer to that in the fall, which is why one of the reasons we're setting it aside and waiting a few months before trying to figure out how to allocate that.
That's right. So our procedure the last few years has been to bring that forward in September once the books are closed and give you a final number.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no other requests to speak, before I go to the public, Councilwoman Dixon.
I'm sorry. No, I'll wait till after public comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments, please come forward.
Mayor Muldoon and members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. First of all, for the council members who are not on the Finance Committee, it might be good to confirm, as I believe is the case, in connection with the budget, I believe the city has decided to discontinue the so-called open budget feature that was on the city website that allowed members of the public to track in more or less real time, sort of a month behind, what you had budgeted and how the expenses were tracking that and the revenues that were coming in. I'm not sure very many people used that. It did seem like a useful feature though, and it's a little strange to me that we're discontinuing it because it was not terribly expensive. And then the other comment I would want to make is the same comment that I make every year, that the budget is a very lengthy document. It's a little hard for the public to follow, and much of what is being budgeted or budget decisions are not completely apparent to the public, even from reading the lengthy document that we have here. A specific example I could give you is that this morning I attended a study session of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District, in whose sewer system I am a resident. They, like this city, are struggling with the rollout of the new trash program that they provide to Costa Mesa and Santa Ana Heights, requiring organics under what's called SB 1383. And one of their topics they were discussing was how they were going to budget and spend a grant that they received from Cal Recycle of $168,000. During our discussions, which was to implement that rollout of the organics program, during our discussions here, I never actually can recall hearing that we received a grant, but when I look at the budget on page 31, I see something called a contribution fund, and I see a Cal Recycle number, and it says that we received apparently $162,000, which I'm guessing might be the same grant from Cal Recycle. Most of the things in the contribution fund, you look in the CIP, and it shows that they're being used. I don't see that being used for anything. So I am suspecting that where that money is being budgeted or going, the discussion that happened this morning at the sanitary district, would be on page 158, which is within the Public Works Department, the refuse expenses, but I cannot correlate anything in that with the $162,000 that I'm guessing is the grant for the rollout of the organics program. And I have no way, from looking at the budget document, as detailed and lengthy as it is, how we are planning to spend that grant, assuming we received it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mosier. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, let's bring it back to the dais. I have some brief comments, but I want to make sure no one else wants to speak. Yes, Councilman Neal.
Sure. I can't be the chair of the Finance Committee and stay silent. First, wanted to echo our conversations from the last meeting and thank our Finance Committee members, especially those who are serving in the volunteer capacity as representatives of those council members who are not on the committee itself. Really staggering where we are 2 years later, when we were moving from a $220 million anticipated budget and immediately needed to drop to 199 almost overnight, using a tiered system that gave us kind of nightmares and heart palpitations, but we were able to make it through. And throughout the year, we were able to see a rollback instead of a continuation on that tiered cut system, all the way up until this last fiscal year, where even then we were still seeing revenue assumptions that were below the anticipated revenue had COVID and the lockdowns not occurred. This budget, on the other hand, is different. It is frankly remarkable of where we are, and the ability for us to take care of all the short-term issues that have arisen, and also start taking care of long-term issues as well, from unfunded pension liabilities to debt reduction to setting aside capital improvement program monies to fully funding some of the projects that are going to be kind of fun, like the junior guard program building and the library lecture hall. And also we're looking at a capital improvement program right now that is anticipated to exceed $102 million, which will keep Dave Webb and his team very, very busy, which, it's going to be fun. So being able to talk about that is a big deal, and being able to get to a point where we have a lot more renewed optimism matters. That said, we need to be paying a lot of attention to the fact that there's a lot of economic indicators that are concerning, and we need to remember that concern hits us because it hits our residents and the visitors that come to our city, and so we need to be paying attention, obviously, to inflationary concerns and recessionary concerns. And so this budget does not spend every dollar that we anticipate by any stretch of the imagination, and in fact continues to make sure we have a strong contingency reserve as well as a built-up reserve for capital improvement projects going forward. And frankly, as well as in 3 months, taking a look at whether we need to be spending that $11 million on core services or whether we have the ability to set it aside for future and make a determination of where we are economically. And last but not least, obviously, one of our biggest concerns remains to be unfunded pension liabilities, which over the last 6 years we've reduced by about $100 million. But there is no way, given the stock market conditions and where we anticipate CalPERS returns, that they will reach the their discount rate. Not going to happen, which means that we probably are anticipating seeing our unfunded pension liabilities going up, which is all the more reason why we need to continue to have a steady dollar cost average approach to paying it down. We will continue to be stronger than many other cities when it comes to that, simply because we have the capacity for it, but also the stewardship that exists up on this dais. And so this is a budget I'm proud of. I think we should all be proud of. And I appreciate all of the effort that has gone into it, especially this is one of Grace's biggest responsibilities under the charter, and you've delivered yet another very fine budget. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Avery.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, as a member of the Finance Committee who's still learning a lot, I want to thank very much Councilmember O'Neill for his leadership, not only this past year, but the past 5 years on the Finance Committee. Absolutely delivered a really important budget during COVID in 2020. I know there are a lot of hands in that, but still, to me, it was Councilmember O'Neill who really drove that decision. That was, and I remember it clearly at the time, I wasn't on finance, but it was a scary time, and trying to make that balance between what we were hearing and feeling and sort of staying rational and picking the way forward. It worked out really well. And as he mentioned, I think we're probably headed to some kind of kerfuffle in the economy. And I have full faith that our team, the entire team on finance, will handle it and with Chairman O'Neill's leadership, we'll get through it. But I think everybody knows there's some rumbling going on, and we've got to look at it clear-eyed, and I know we will with the leadership that we currently have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brenner.
I just wanted to echo what Brad said and thank Chair O'Neill on that, but I also wanted to thank all the members of the Finance Committee, all the people that spend so many hours going over these numbers and attending meetings, and our city staff. We are really blessed to have such a competent city staff that looks at these things so carefully, and I just speaking for the citizens of Newport Beach, thank you all.
Thank you. Before I chime in, Councilwoman Dixon, do you have any comments?
I've had audio problems all night, but I'm still here. First of all, I just want to echo what everyone says. I can't let a budget be passed without saying how grateful we are to live in the city that we are, that we have the property tax revenues that sustain us and will continue to sustain us, even if and notwithstanding, we'll have economic headwinds, of course, that will hit us, but we have such a solid revenue base with a property tax that we are very fortunate with the improvements that go on in our business and residential areas that keep our city running smoothly with the professional staff and our committee, that finance committee that has worked very hard over the years, and we have an excellent finance department staff under Scott's leadership and an excellent city manager. We've got all the pieces that come together to produce a budget that you are seeing tonight, and we are unique among cities, I believe, in California, if not the country, the continuous sustained level of budget surpluses, balanced budgets, and continuing to invest in our community so that our sales tax, our TOT revenues would not be what they are if we weren't continuing to keep Newport Beach beautiful. And we're just indebted to all the people that work hard to make our city what it is. And we are a great city, and that's what we've always believed in. So thank you, staff, and thank you, Finance Committee members, and under Mr. O'Neill's leadership. And appreciate everybody's hard work. It is a full-time job, really, as a committee member, to just manage that. It's a lot of detail. And the staff has been conservative in its expectations every year. And I commend our city manager for converting some of the expensive part-time workers, employees, into full-time at just a modest cost. And while I always like to keep headcount flat, we've had to do the necessary conversions, and I'm very supportive of that. So we do have headwinds ahead with CalPERS, just as Mr. O'Neill said. It ain't going to be pretty next year, but we have certainly continuing to invest in the pay down to make our city stronger in the long term. So again, thank you, and job well done. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, see no other comments. There are many things about the budget that I like and I appreciate, and are things that we've been championing over our tenure here on council. There's a philosophical difference, though, that I have from mainly staff on full-time positions and adding to those positions, especially in what are certainly uncertain economic times. So I'm proud of the work that was done to keep reserves high and to pay down the debt, but I cannot support a budget that's going to increase our staff. And even if we weren't afraid of a looming recession, I still likely would not support increasing full-time positions due to the uncertainty of new individuals joining the CalPERS system and their unreliable investment strategies and constant requirement that the city make up the difference. Councilman O'Neill.
Yeah, I'd like to move the staff recommendation with the incorporation of the F28 policy modification on the language.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Avery. Let's vote.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Aye.
Councilmember Duffield?
Aye.
Councilmember Dixon?
Aye.
Councilmember Brenner?
Aye.
Councilmember Avery?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Blum?
Yes.
And Mayor Muldoon?
No.
The motion carries 6-1.
Okay, item number 23, staff.
So would you like a staff report on this item?
Is there any requests from the dais or from New York for a staff report? I'm not seeing any. Any public comments on this item?
Mayor Muldoon, members of the council. My name is Jim Mosier. This item, the topic of which was not announced, but I see it on the screen up there, is the approval of a military equipment use policy for the Newport Beach Police Department, something that appears to be required of us this year and ongoing by the state. I have kind of the impression from the staff report that it's something the city is doing, a little bit like a child being told to do something and kind of kicking and screaming, but doing it. I did note in reading the ordinance that you are being asked to approve that introduces and approves the policy on page 23-4. It makes a series of 7 findings that the council is making. When I tried to read them, number 1 and number 3 seem to contradict each other. Number 1 says that the equipment is necessary to the city because there is no reasonable alternative that can achieve the same objective of officer and civilian safety. So it says that there is no reasonable alternative. And then number 3 says that the equipment described is reasonably cost effective compared to the available alternatives that can achieve the same objective. So one is saying there are all no alternatives, and the other says it's better than the alternatives that we have available. The only way I can reconcile those is if perhaps the first one is saying there's no reasonable non-military alternative, and that what we have is the most cost-effective of the military options that we have, but I am not sure. Anyway, it seemed odd that the 2 findings would contradict each other, at least as I read them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. Is there a motion?
Yeah, just one quick comment before making the motion. This is a completely absurd law that is costing our police department an obscene amount of time to go through. Despite it being called a military equipment law, it's very clear that the police department has received nothing from the United States Department of Defense, and yet we have to go through 75 hours in order to complete this, plus 25 more each year. This is obscene and a total waste of local resources, and a good example, yet again, of government overreach from Sacramento. That said, given that it's legally required, I'll make the motion for staff recommendation.
Is there a second? Second by Councilman Duffield. Seeing no request to speak on this item, let's vote.
I'll read the ordinance title prior to conducting the roll call vote. Ordinance 2022-15, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach approving a military equipment use policy for the Newport Beach Police Department. Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes.
Councilmember Duffield? Councilmember Dixon?
Yes.
Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember Avery?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Blom?
Yes.
And Mayor Muldoon.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please read the announcement for motions for reconsideration.
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Any motions to reconsider? Okay, seeing none, I think Councilwoman Brenner is going to adjourn.
Yes, I'd like to adjourn the meeting tonight in honor of the Uvalde victims and the students, the staff, all the Americans that died there, and know that regardless of our differences, we're unified in wanting to protect our citizens, and we will work toward that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. We are adjourned.